Have you ever been told to just think positively when you're just drowning in negative thoughts? Here's the reality is that it doesn't work. What I'm about to show you here is one of the most powerful surrendering processes that you can use to start to switch this thing around and not just follow the generic advice of think positively, don't worry, be happy, or Hakuna Matata. So let's dive right into this. So first thing is first, when you're feeling negative thoughts, don't feel positive thoughts. Don't force yourself to feel positive thoughts, because what you're doing in that particular step is that you are trying to suppress those negative thoughts. And whatever you suppress, you're resisting. And whatever you're resisting is only going to persist. And it's going to compound over time and continue to berate you until you actually look at it. And so the first thing that we have, the first step, no matter what we do, is awareness. Okay. And so awareness is actually just recognizing that you are currently experiencing some form of thought process that tends to be negatively oriented, that is coming through the meatloaf between your ears. You've got something bumping out there that's along the lines of fear, doubt, or anxiety, or whatever you want to call it, but it is not serving you. Know that your negative emotions and feelings are signals to you that something is not in alignment with who you really are. You see, we've been conditioned in a variety of different ways, from our caretakers, to our schools, to our environment and our societies, and through our own self-beliefs. We've been conditioned to operate from a place of essentially lack, this scarcity. And with that comes these negative thoughts. And then what we do is we do like what most other people are doing. We try and suppress and repress those things. But instead here, I'm showing you that you can surrender to it. This is the best technique, the most powerful technique that I find in this is actually humor. That's right. It's just introducing humor in the very thing. Now, how does this actually look like in the practical space? Yes, and I do understand this is not to discredit the fact that there are negative events and where you do feel, tend to feel, sadness and fear and all that stuff. There are those situations. But more often than not, we are feeling them on a regular basis when we're trying to do just regular things like work or studying for a particular thing, or even traveling or commuting. We're getting bombarded by these thoughts. So what you do is essentially you become aware of this very thing. You become aware that you've got a negative thought that is now currently present. And you tap into the analogy of a cloud in the sky. So now I'm starting to observe it as if the thought was a cloud in the sky. And what I can see is I can see the cloud. I can recognize that it's there. I can understand and accept that it is there. But I also know that it's got nothing to do with me. And when you do that, you start the process of disassociating yourself with that negative thought. And in doing so, you're now starting to regain power to decide on what you want to do next. And that right there is extremely powerful. And then what you do, so this is how we start to introduce the humor portion. Now that we know that something's there, we can start to either exaggerate that fear. And as we exaggerate that fear, it becomes more and more ridiculous to the point you're like, okay, like I can see how this fear is just losing its grip on me. You can just completely collapse into it, like, oh my God, like what's happening? So let's jump into an example. Let's just jump right into an example, right? You might be up next to present, I don't know, whether it's at a school where you're presenting some sort of project, or you're at work and it's your turn to speak and it's coming up and you're feeling this fear just bottle up and you're starting to get worried, like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, what do I got to say? What am I going to do? What's going to happen? And all these negative thoughts coming in. You're an idiot. You're never going to feel it. You're going to fail. You're never going to get this thing done right. Blah, 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 blah. You're going crazy with this whole thing. And so what you're able to do is just recognize, I've got a bunch of these fears. Now, when you identify the very thing, like, there's fear here, you can now step in and be like, let's amplify this bad boy, okay? Let's amplify this fear even more. And be like, how can I feel even more of this stuff right now? Like, you're right, fear. They're going to take over. They're going to think I'm such an idiot. They're going to think I did this. In fact, they're going to probably stand up laugh at me by pointing their fingers at me and say, you are one sad, pathetic loser. And we're going to fire you. And we're also going to then send all kinds of paparazzi to your house, and they're going to film you and be like, this right here, this is the biggest idiot in the world. And then they're going to write they're going to take a permanent marker and write shame across your forehead and be like, you're just going to be like, I don't know what to do anymore, right? So when you start to exaggerate it in that particular way, I mean, this is my way of exaggerating it. You can have fun with it. The whole point is that you're starting to have fun with it. And as you have fun with it, it starts to lose its grip, its hold on you. And so this is why you find a lot of very spiritually advanced teachers, and a lot of those particularly, a lot of them tend to be quite funny. They tend to introduce humor in a lot of different areas because that's essentially what they're seeing. They're seeing humor in the whole thing, and they realize that we're just taking life so seriously in these particular things, and we're so encompassed and taken over by our current situation that we can't see it from a different perspective. Now, once again, that doesn't mean to discredit some particular events. Yes, some events are quite negative. Yes, some events require some time for you to process these feelings and emotions. I'm talking about the events that don't, the ones that are just where you're just consistently having these thoughts. Now, what I like about this technique is that it can be applied in a relatively quick state, like in a moment-to-moment basis. Okay, first off, I agree with when they say think positively. It can shift you. It can shift where you're at. And yes, that has a tendency to sometimes work. But then that gives you the false illusion that it's always going to work. And so what's happening is that it's convenient in the fact that maybe I'm in the middle of making a video and I have this doubt creep in. I'm able to just meet it with some positivity or meet it with some sort of boundary and say, no, right now I'm going to focus on positivity and just go with that. Great, that was very effective. But when that's a constant, continuous thing, it loses its effectiveness. And that's where I find when you tap into humor. Now, humor, you're actually able to exaggerate the thing, play around with the whole thing. What you're doing is you're completely disassociating from that thought and it loses its grip. Now, ultimately, even this technique I find, despite humor being, I think, one of the most healing spiritual things you can ever do, like a comedian probably can heal the general consciousness of that room for that place and time way better than a lot of healers out there in this particular space. That's my opinion, but you tell me otherwise. I mean, once you go to a comedy show and you come out and it's been really good, you are in a good state of mind. So that's my belief behind that. Now, the other thing that happens, though, with this technique is that this is consistently relied upon. If you're consistently trying to bring humor and stuff, well, there is a point where you need to recognize that, hey, look, this feeling and this emotion that's being brought up, not necessarily the thoughts, but this feeling and emotion that's being brought up is something, it's trying to tell me that, look, my true self and my who I think I am or who I think I need to be is out of alignment. And the further out of alignment you are from your true self versus who you appear to be, the further that gap, the more the resistance and the more likelihood you are to feel these things. And so there is great insight and value to having fear and doubt and anxiety come up. Because if you're able to feel it, you're able to recognize, okay, I am living somewhere along these lines. My belief system is not in alignment with this particular thing or whatever it is that I'm doing. And there you can start the process of inquiry. And so if you have the time, what I like to do is first step, awareness, like with everything, recognizing that it's there. Second is thanking it. It's gratitude. And this is wild because gratitude is an extremely powerful technique in order to reframe a lot of your beliefs. Gratitude is one of the most powerful techniques as well as humor. But what I do is I tap into gratitude and I say, thank you, fear. Thank you, doubt. Thank you for showing me a place in which I am out of alignment. From there, I tap into understanding it a little bit more, and there's different methods and ways that you can do that. But ultimately, from the understanding, I'm able to accept why it is there and why it is popping up in the first place, and then I'm able to forgive it. And after that forgiveness comes the inevitable wisdom of the entire thing. Like, I have learned the lesson that I needed to learn, and I understand it. Now, That's a much more in-depth, that's a much more slower process. But if you're in the moment and you're engaging in particular things, or someone's cutting you off in traffic, exaggerate it. Try introducing as much humor as you possibly can. Make yourself laugh. Make it as ridiculous as possible, because what's going to happen is you're tapping out of that state and you are getting all your power back by choosing how you want to feel, rather than having external life dictate who you are and how you need to be feeling. So with that, if you find value in this video, please share it to a friend, share it to somebody else, leave some comments below, and I'll see you on the next video. Thank you so much for your time.